It's time for another edition of Mets Musings.
Hi, this is Ron Darling. This is Skip Lockwood.
Hi, I'm Ron Swoboda of the 69 New York Mets, and you're listening to Mets Musings with Gary Mack.
Now it's time for some New York Mets baseball talk. Here's Gary Mack bringing you the latest news and analysis from Mets Nation and the world of baseball on another edition of Mets Musings.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Mets Musings, number 473. Wow, really pushing the envelope there. Getting up there. Well, it has been a terrific opening for the New York Mets, and what a week we had. I mean, just the weekend alone started off with a combined no-hitter. Yeah, combined no-hitter, 5 guys. Tyler McGill. Started it, and it ended with Edwin Diaz, and Drew Smith was in there, and Jolie Rodriguez pitched an inning in there, and Seth Lugo got it out and was in the game, and just a terrific thing. A combined no-hitter, the 17th in MLB history, and the second no-hitter for the New York Mets. So that was terrific enough. And then the Braves come into town, and the Mets dropped the first game, but then sweep a doubleheader. And unfortunately, they couldn't finish off the Braves. They got a little bullpen kind of took a step backwards. And Mets got hammered around the ballpark. But you know these things happen. You expect a blowout every now and then, and this was the Mets one. So 2-2 against the Braves on the current homestand. And the thing is that they've won 7 of their opening series and now split one. So they're still undefeated when it comes to series. They haven't lost a series yet. So they've won 7 in a row, and now they split one. And you know, that's not too bad. The way to start off the season and get in first place and have a lead and try to expand it a little bit as the rest of the NL East struggles to gain footage. The Philadelphia Phillies, who the Mets will be playing this weekend, in a 4-game set in Philadelphia, and we'll see. We'll pick up from last weekend or see what happens with that. So, again, you want to try to get at least 2 of 2 at the minimum. You want to get 3 out of 4, or heck, you want to get all 4, of course. But, you know, sometimes you just have to settle for different things. So, you know, Mets are still playing some good baseball, and you can't deny that. And it's a great thing to watch. They're fun to watch now, and we'll see how it continues as the year continues. News on the Mets front is that the Mets designated second baseman Robinson Cano for assignment. Of course, you all heard that. And they optioned Yohan Lopez to AAA to get down to the 26 players. Now, they will have to pay Cano the money, $37.6 million. But, you know, the Mets had to do this. This was the smart baseball move. He was taking up, you know, at-bats from guys that really deserved it. And you know, the bottom line is you want to win. And Steve Cohen, you know, thank goodness he's a man. The management went to him, and he gave the okay. It's a big nut to take, but you know, he's willing to drop that kind of money versus the opportunity or the better opportunity to win. Now, Cano could go somewhere and get red hot and hit a lot and say, see, I told you so. But I think for this team, this was the right move at this time. And there's nothing else you can do about it. It was really the most obvious decision. We've discussed this before on this show. I think we discussed it on last week's show about that he should be the obvious choice. So Robinson Cano Day as New York Mets are over. And Mets reliever Trevor May has been diagnosed with a stress reaction on the lower portion of his humerus and will be shut down for approximately 4 weeks, the team announced on Wednesday. The right-hander on Tuesday had an MRI which revealed inflammation caused by the stress reaction. Adonis Medina has been recalled from AAA Syracuse to take May's spot on the roster. And, of course, May is the second relief pitcher to go down. Sean Reed Foley hurt his arm. If you remember, he got hurt throwing in a game, came out of a game, true pitch. He knew something was wrong. Partial tear. Could have to get Tommy John surgery, but it's still up in the air about that. So we'll see how that all begins to play out. Got a terrific guest for you today. He'll be coming up after we take a short message. But being that we talked about the Phillies last week with Rich Baxter, we thought with Washington coming in next week, let's talk to somebody that knows a little bit about the Washington Nationals. So stay tuned, and I'll have my guest, Max Rayman of District on Deck, right after this.
Baseball and BBQ, your place for interesting baseball talk, opinions, and history.
Baseball and BBQ, your place for barbecue recipes, tips, and interviews from the world of barbecue. If you like baseball and if you like barbecue, then tune in to Baseball and BBQ. Find us on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, and BaseballTalkRadio.com.
Wouldn't it be great if you could get a PhD in life through baseball? Welcome to Baseball PhD, a tour company for your brain. 30 major league teams, 100 places to see. Let's touch them all as we make the road trip of a lifetime.
Follow me on Facebook at facebook.com/MetsMusings, on Twitter at MetsMusingsGM, the Instagram is MetsMusings, and on YouTube at MetsMusings Mack. Wish to be a part of the show? Give us a call at 516-619-6341. Joining me this week is Mr. Max Rayman. He is a contributor to the District on Deck blog covering the Washington Nationals. He's here right now. Max, thanks for joining me.
Of course, man. Thank you. I appreciate the invite. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, and especially since the Mets are off to a good start, so it just adds to it a little bit.
No, I understand, especially, they've been hot for sure.
Well, you're a couple years away from a world championship. We're a little bit longer away, like 30 some odd years. So, but the Nats are not having the best of starts to the season. And what really were the aspirations for the Nationals this season, as far as the fan base and the team were concerned?
The fan base as a whole, they just wanted to see improvements. Myself, I knew this was a rebuild. The season was all about Keibert Ruiz, Juan Soto, showing him that the young guys are worth building around, showing the Juan Soto that it's worth sticking around. So that's the main thing, keeping them happy. So Keibert Ruiz having a great year. Josiah Gray, the two pieces from the Max Scherzer trade, making sure that they were worth giving up Trey Turner and Scherzer for the future. And so far, so good. Josiah Gray has been excellent after a up and down year last year. Ruiz has been getting on base, not really hitting for power, but that's okay. Not everyone hits for power right away in their first full season in the majors. Just trying to see if anything else sticks. Josh Bell has been off to a hot tear. So now Nats fans are hoping that he gets extended, myself included. But who knows? He could also be flipped. So just to see that they're showing improvements. If they're bad, that's fine. But you don't want to root for a bad team and there's nothing to root for. This team, there's pieces to root for. So it's not been terrible. It's not like the Nationals teams from the early 2000s that were losing 100 games and there was, besides Ryan Zimmerman, there was zero things to look forward to. At
Yeah.
least this time around, there's a few ups and downs.
Yeah, they've been feisty. I mean, I've seen a few of the games other than when they played the Mets, and they seem to be in every game. They're not getting blown out. I mean, you'll get your occasional blowout. Mets got blown out the other night, so it happens. But they seem to be a feisty group and staying in the game, battling all the way through.
Yeah, I would say that. I mean, even against the Mets, the first few games didn't go so great, but the fact that they weren't going to get swept, the fact that they scored 3 or 4 runs against Max Scherzer in Scherzer's return to Nats Park, that was huge. And then taking the series finale and not getting swept, like they showed their time. And then recently they just took 2 of 3 from the Giants, and they've won 3 of 5 on their current road trip after losing 8 straight at home. So they're showing some slight improvements.
hmm And you mentioned Josh Bell. He's off to a fantastic start, having a great year so far. But Juan Soto's getting off to a slow start.
Yeah, it's okay. Because after all, he is Juan Soto, and this happens. Last year he had a pretty strong start before his second half, which turned him into a MVP candidate. I mean, he's hitting 258 right now, 862 OPS. He's not really hitting for the power and everything. 5 home runs, I believe they're all solo shots. He only has one RBI with runners on, which is a little alarming. But at the same time, it's early. He's getting used to his new situation. He's hit third or fourth his entire career, and this year he's hitting second. So less
hmm
RBI opportunities, but more at bats in general. And he even said it would take him a little bit to get used to, and it's showing. He's extending the strike zone a little bit here and there. Umpires in general haven't been great this year, not just for the Nats, just for all teams. I bet you could agree to that. Umpires have been
Oh
having a
yeah.
big problem this year. And because of that, Soto's struggling. He knows the strike zone better than almost anyone, and they're not agreeing with that. Like last night, he was watching some pitches that they're calling strikes, and he was looking at them, and I was just like, "Yeah, that was outside, but there's not much you can do about it." So, I mean, the umpires aren't really helping with that regard. But I give it a few weeks, and Soto will be back to his usual self.
Yeah, I mean he's got so much talent that uh, eventually it's gonna come out. It's just a slow start, and don't forget the short spring training too had a lot to do with that. I think. I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
I do and I don't. Like hitters are still getting up to speed. I think the shortened spring training, if anything, affected pitchers the most. I
Pitches,
think
yeah.
that's why we're seeing a huge influx of pitching injuries. The Grom, and just to name one, and then a bunch of other starters have just been sidelined already, and it's not been great for the bats. About now is usually around the time they would get going if they had a full spring training. So I mean, he's
hmm
just a little bit behind schedule,
Yeah,
but it's all right. Josh Bell at least is carrying the load, and he's been very fun to watch.
that's true.
Entering yesterday's game, he was third in the National League in batting average. So I mean, and he had a few hits last night, so he's keeping it going, keeping them
And
afloat.
Yadiel Hernandez is having a pretty. He's off to a pretty good start. Um, so you've got some guys hitting and some guys are struggling. Um, the Nationals went out and they got Nelson Cruz to be their DH, but he's off to a slow start.
hmm He's the Nats actually their game starts in a few minutes, and I saw he's on the lineup tonight. He I think he tweaked his back or something last night, and they pulled him from the lineup a little bit early, and he's out today, just giving him some extended rest, which is all right because for a baseball player, he's an old man. He's like 41, 42. He's feel like he's been playing forever. Just
Yeah.
define father's time, and it looks like father time is finally catching up. But I mean, who knows? Maybe the short and spring training is affecting Cruz also, and he'll after this
Could be.
quick day off, he'll come back. But yeah, you mentioned Gadio Hernandez, and he's been a very pleasant surprise because he wasn't really a guy that you look at to be a starter, be a key contributor. He's in his 30s, hasn't really had an opportunity for many clubs, and he's hitting 371. For those that don't really care about batting average, he has an OPS of 926. He's only appeared in 62 at bats. He's already worth .5 B WAR, 14 RBIs. Outside of Bell, he's been the Nats' most productive hitter, and he just does nothing but get on base. A 177 OPS plus. He's just been a godsend. And Nationals fans are actually torn about him. Some fans want to flip him at the deadline and get something from him. And even though he's in his 30s, he has 4 to 5 years of team control because he didn't debut until very late into like a player's career. So, do you want to flip him with 4 to 5 years of team control, knowing you're not going to get the fair share for him? You just want to strengthen your farm system now and go all in to speed up your rebuild. So it's an interesting conversation. And knowing the Nats, I wouldn't be surprised if they hold on to him this year and keep him going until they believe they can get fair share for his available time remaining. But I mean, he's been fun to watch. He was a very, very pleasant surprise.
And it seems as if the team stayed relatively healthy. You mentioned Cruz has got his aches and pains and whatnot, but the bullpen is where you've had some injuries so far. Sean Doolittle, yeah, I believe he's out for 60 days, and Hunter Harvey and Mason Thompson. What kind of injuries did these guys get, and is there any concern to worry about long term?
Oh, there's so much concern. Ever since Dave Martinez took over, he's been known for finding a reliever, liking him, and pitching him what feels like every night, and it leads to injuries. Sean Doolittle in the 18-19 season, and then I guess now he's already on the IL. He's had his other guys. Wander Suero was a workhorse of his, and then he just lost it and was DFA'd. He's on a different team now because he was just overworked. So yeah, and now that the rosters have gone down from 28 to 26, and you can't have the extra bullpen guys, and there's not the extra reinforcements, it's a little worrisome, especially because Nats have a young rotation who aren't going deep in the game. So the less innings the rotation throws, the more innings you're throwing on your bullpen. And if the Nationals already have 3 to 4 relievers on the IL, it's just going to get worse. The Nats bullpen has actually been pleasant surprise, but I don't think it's going to last a full season because I think bodies are going to start getting. I think the IL is going to pile up. I was very upset that it took this fast to do it. As of entering the Rockies series a few nights ago, the Nats already led the league in bullpen innings, and I know it's only gotten worse. Granted, last night was very helpful. Patrick Corbin, complete game, 8 innings, so that gave the bullpen plenty of rest. But yeah, if you're already seeing the Nats bullpen who has 3-4 guys on the IL, Will Harris is on the IL who hasn't even pitched this year. If you're seeing them, the bodies pile up and they already lead the league in innings, it's just going to get worse.
Yeah, and that's the key. That's where the Mets have been lucky so far. They've been going deep. The starters have been pitching very well, going deeper into the game. So, though we've lost a guy already too, Sean Reed Foley got hurt his arm. He could be having Tommy John surgery, and Trevor May as well is out for about 8 weeks. So you won't be seeing those guys. But yeah, it's tough, and especially that bullpen. And as you say, they find guys that they like and they trust, and they keep going back to them. I noticed that's one thing Showalter seems to be rotating guys. So hopefully it doesn't happen to us, but I know you don't want to hear about that. But
I mean, I like Showalter. I was a fan of his when he was in Baltimore. It's just a little sad to see him go to the Mets.
Well, I'll tell you, he's like night and day here now. It's like, wow, we got a professional manager here after the past 4 years or 3 years, whatever it was, where we've had some guys in that were first-timers and did some questionable moves. But what's the word on Strasburg? Any idea when he may be coming back?
Well, with the recent movements Nats made, the guys going to 60-day IL and Strasburg not going to 60-day IL, I take that as a very pleasant sign. The goal was for him to be ramping up, and they had like a June timetable like a month ago, And I know that's going to change. I don't know if it's going to be faster or slower, but after last year when they sped Strasburg to get him back as fast as possible and didn't work, they're taking his time with him. And from what I've heard, there's not been a lot of talk in the last week or so. Been pretty quiet, but there's been no red flags, and they're just trying to take their time with him, not rush him back because he's owed so much money, and he's their best pitcher when healthy. He's one of the best pitchers in baseball when healthy, and they want him back because he is a workhorse. He can eat innings. He can help. He will be a huge godsend to saving this bullpen. When the season started, Dave Martinez said he expected 25 starts from Strasburg. I don't expect that. I think maximum, if we're lucky, we can get 20 starts from Strasburg. But then again, it just really depends when he comes back. They, as I said, a June timetable. Not really sure if that's still going because Rizzo and Martinez have been pretty silent, which is I like. I like that they're keeping everything on their wraps. They're not trying to no leaks, no external conflict, internal conflict. So for now, we're just not a lot to say on Strasburg. Just crossing our fingers, hoping for the best.
Yeah, it's really a shame because he had all that hoopla. I remember when he came out, and then had the Tommy John surgery, and he suffered through some injuries throughout his career, and it's really a shame because he is can be such a dominating pitcher when he's right, and it's just you don't get to see that. You mentioned Corbin before. What kind of start is he off to this season?
It's up and down. Last night was the best night of Corbin's season, and the stats don't show it. He gave up 4 runs last night across 8 complete innings. The game was in Colorado, so we didn't get and they won, so that he didn't get the pitch tonight. But the thing is, Nats should have won that game. Alcides Escobar, the Rockies had runners on first and second, 1 out. Ball hit straight to Alcides Escobar at shortstop, bobbles it, drops it, can't turn a surefire double play. Next guy hits it into the gap. Guy after that hits it in the gap. 5 runs score. Only 4 are earned. But none of that should have happened. That should have been double play. Should have been out of the inning. That was the only time the Rockies threatened against the Nats. And the Nats should have won last night. And Corbin's ERA ballooned because of it. And it doesn't. So if you look at the box score, it doesn't show how excellent he was after struggling all season long. He had 0 walks last night. He had control. He wasn't really striking guys out like he usually does. He was pitching the contact. He was trusting his defense, and they didn't help him out when they needed to. The Nats committed 3 errors, and it cost them.
And that'll kill you as a pitcher all the time, those errors. The Mets had a similar game, only they were on the other side of that against the Cardinals. They were losing going into the 9th, I think it was, and Arenado threw away a ball, and they ended up scoring 5 runs that inning, I think, and getting the win. So it evens itself up, but that's a tough one. But any of the other starters that are distinguishing themselves as we go along so far?
I mentioned him earlier, but Josiah Gray, he was one of the 2 top prospects we got in the Max Scherzer trade, and he's just been a workhorse for the Nets. They had a problem to start the season of guys going past 5 innings. He was the first one to go 6 innings. On the season, he's 3-2, 3.12 ERA, 5 starts, 31 strikeouts, a 3.94 FIP. So his FIP is showing that his ERA isn't as clean as it should be. But I mean, he's been excellent. Outside of 1 bad start, he's been so much fun to watch. Last year's problem was his secondary stuff wasn't fully developed, and this year his curve and his slider have taken the next jump, and they're matching well with his fastball that sits in the mid-90s, and it's crisp, it's clean. He's eating innings. He's promising. Like, the Nats haven't really had a fun, promising pitcher like this since when they were developing Jordan Zimmerman and Strasburg and Rourke. So it's fun to see a guy like this come up, especially when the rest of the rotation, you don't know what you're going to get from every other night. That's rotations outside Gray's been Mr. Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, and Gray's just been Mr. Consistent. He's been fun to watch. He's just one of those guys that he's already making the fan base very happy. Whenever he pitches on Twitter, I see the Nats fan base always ecstatic. The Nats, it used to be Strasburg and Scherzer were must watch, And now for the Nats fans, because there's not a lot to look forward to, Gray's becoming must watch because it's one of the few positive things they can look forward to.
Yeah, yeah, and you need to have something like that when you know your team's rebuilding. That that makes it worthwhile to put on a game and to watch it and to have some fun with it. So that's a good thing for the franchise. Is Davey Martinez? Everybody knows it's a rebuilding, so I assume his job is not in jeopardy. But is if this continues on, could he be in trouble somewhere along the line, or has he got enough goodwill still hanging over from the World Championship?
I think he has plenty of goodwill because he wasn't the one that wanted the team to go in the rebuild. It just kind of happened. And I agree with the rebuild. It had to happen. They had the oldest roster in baseball and they won the World Series.
Mm-hmm.
The farm system was terrible. They traded everything away to win, which worked. So they had to restart. And he just got caught in it. So now he's in a rebuilding era. Mike Rizzo, when the season started, said that his timetable for the Nats to return to contention is 2024. So if the Nats are bad this year and next year, that's expected because Rizzo said that. So I expect Martinez to be here for the long haul, bearing unforeseen circumstances such as the Nationals owners are currently looking at selling the team. So who knows? Maybe the new owners come in and they just want to clean house. And that's the case. He could be a casualty, which I
Right.
really hope doesn't happen because the guys respect him. The guys look up to him. He's been very good with the players. And he's the longest tenured manager in Nationals history, believe it or not. No, only a few managers had gone this long.
Yeah.
And so even when they were good every year, the managers were either going 1 or 2 seasons. Um, so yeah, I think he has enough goodwill. Mike Rizzo and they work perfectly together in tandem. They're always on the same page. It might upset the fan base because they don't always agree with their decisions, but those two do work well together. So yeah, I do expect to see him here for the next few seasons until they're able to contend again. But if they're still bad in 24, 25, then if like it doesn't go
Then
according
it,
to plan, then I could see him getting the
yeah,
hook.
yeah. And interestingly enough, you got a lot of ex Mets on your coaching staff.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm going through it. Tim Bogar, Pat Rossler was the assistant hitting coach for the Mets. Eric Young Jr. played a bit here. Gary DiZarcina, Ricky Bones, Henry Blanco. A lot of ex Mets on the coaching staff. That's kind of good to see, though, that at least that guys that played and retired are still in the game and imparting their knowledge and going to other teams and being fairly successful.
I'm sorry, I just got distracted. The Nats game just started, and Juan Soto immediately
Oh.
homered. So I was just a little caught up in that. And it was another solo shot, of course. No one was on base, so he has
Nobody. All right, so the
yeah,
Nets are up 1-0.
another solo shot for Soto. So, but yeah, I agree. But sometimes it happens like that. Sometimes guys
Oh
bring in a
yeah.
bunch of coaches from the other era, and I mean, I was a little surprised with a bunch of Mets staff because Martinez, when he first came, I expected to see guys from the when he was on the Devil Rays era and the Cubs era when he was with John Madden for all those years. Instead,
Hmm.
he trusted and went a different outlet. And I like it because the Nats were one of the few teams that had one of the smallest coaching staffs, and it was upsetting. In today's age of analytics and developing the players, you need as many coaches as possible. So I was happy to see this year the coaching staff balloon. They got so much bigger, so much more help in the minors, in the majors. And if they're Mets coaches, so be it. Like I don't really care what team they come from as long as they're good
Yeah,
at their job.
I agree. It's like Showalter coming here. Some people said, well, he was with the Yankees. I I don't care as long as he wins. That's the bottom line, and they teach the players well. You spoke a little bit about the minor league system. How is it? Is it getting better now? Are they building it up and taking the time?
Yeah, they are. The Max Scherzer trade helped. I mean, granted, 2 of the 4 guys from the Scherzer trade are already in the pros. That happens. They traded 8 players last year during their fire sale. And they got 12 prospects for it. 4 or 5 of those prospects are already in the majors. Mason Thompson, who's on the IL, Riley Adams, who's the backup catcher. They got the guy for Brad Hand, Keibert Ruiz, Josiah Gray. They're all in the pros. And then there's other guys that are on the cusp. Donovan Casey, who's a AAA outfielder that was part of the Scherzer trade. Um, Drew Millis, he's one of the catchers they got in the trade for Josh Harrison, and Jan Gomes, he's a double A right now. So, I mean, the farm system's still a ways to go, but what helps is the Nats have the 5th pick in this year's draft. And this year's draft is very top heavy from what I've been looking at. You got those outfield studs, Drew Jones, Andrew Jones' sons leading the way. You got a few of the top college bats that look very good, like LSU's Jacob Berry. So no, I'm very excited for where they're at. And the Nats farm system, it just needs position player help. Their top prospects right now are all pitchers. You got Cade Cavalli, Cole Henry, Jackson Rutledge. They only have one bat right now that they really look at as a future cornerstone. So position player help will be good part. And the Nats, they're not going to be good this year, which is fine. So I expect another top 5 pick the following year. But who knows? Because now that they added the lottery, we could get screwed over.
Yeah, and you just don't know though. It could go either way too. You could end up with a terrific pick and
yeah, it's a crapshoot.
And it's a crapshoot. Any year it's a crapshoot. You never know when you draft these kids and how they're gonna work out. But well, Max, I want to thank you for coming on today, and I'll let you get to your ball game now. Tell the people where they can read your stuff and about District on Deck.
You can check us out on Twitter, Edition on Deck. We just cover the Washington Nationals for Fansided. Always tweeting about the games, always talking about the NL East and our different opponents and looking at it from that perspective. Edition on Deck at Twitter. Find me at Maximum Rayman to talk anything DC sports. And I really appreciate the opportunity, and I enjoyed my time.
Oh, that's good. We can have you on again whenever the Mets play the Nationals again. Well, we they play so often, so
which is fun. You like to see that type of stuff with the East Coast teams playing each other. It's always something to look forward to.
Yeah, and it means more in the standings. I think it just seems more important to beat Washington or Philadelphia or Atlanta than to beat Oakland or something.
And it also helps that for the different sports, they're all in the same division. You got the Commanders and the Giants, the Rangers and the Caps, the Nats and the Mets. So it feels like it's not just baseball; it's just like a rivalry in sports in general. So whenever you can beat them in any of those 3 sports, it always feels a little better.
That's so true. All right, Max. Thanks so much for your time again, and we'll talk again.
All right, thank you, man. You have a good one.
Okay, and I'll be back right after this. 516-619-6341. That is the comment voicemail hotline if you'd like to be a part of the show, and drop us a line, leave us a comment or a voicemail, question, anything at all. Call that number 516-619-6341, or go to MetsMusings.com and click on that widget in the middle of the screen, and that's a speak pipe, and you can leave a voicemail right through your computer through your computer's microphone. Or if you prefer to do things the old-fashioned way, send us an email at metsmusings@gmail.com. The Facebook page is facebook.com/groups/MetsMusings. And if you'd like to help out the show, check out our Patreon page. Check out the campaign at patreon.com/MetsMusings. And you got it. It's time to go down on the farm, and let's take a look at how the Mets minor league teams are doing. Syracuse, as we record this, they are 9-16, 5.5 games out of first place in their division. Binghamton is 7-15, 6.5 games out of first place in their division. Brooklyn hanging tough. They're 12-11 in second place, 4.5 games back. And St. Lucie leads their division. They are 16-7, in the Florida State League. So that's how the rankings or the records of the minor league teams and players to look out for. And one that we might see with Trevor May hurt, Colin Holderman is pitching very well for Syracuse. 8 1/3 innings in relief so far. He's 1-0. He's got 2 saves and a 2.16 ERA. He impressed in spring training, threw over 100 miles per hour. He's got a wipeout slider and also a decent changeup. So Holderman could be a guy that we are getting to see. As far as some of the other prospects, Francisco Alvarez seems to be mired in a bit of a slump. His first in Double-A ball. It happens, though. You know, it's a new experience for him. He's in a little bit of a slump, as is Brett Beatty. Both of them seem to be going through the same things together. But I'm sure that with their talents, they'll be able to smack their way out of it and get back to the way they were playing before. Ronnie Mauricio continues to play pretty good for the Rumble Ponies, and he could be something viable for the Mets coming in the future. St. Lucy's got a couple of good young guys that are playing well at the moment. Mike Fassel, the pitcher, is one that comes to mind, and so keep an eye on St. Lucie as they're ahead in their division. And that's going to wrap it up for this week's show. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope that you'll join us each and every week. If you're watching on YouTube, please hit the subscribe and the like button. It helps us grow the audience and makes us grow the show as well. So remember to subscribe to the podcast. And if you're listening to the audio podcast, subscribe as well to Apple Podcasts or Google Play, wherever you get or listen to or watch or whatever you do with the podcast. Hit that subscribe button so you'll always know when another episode of Mets Musings is coming out. So you never know when I'm going to release one, so check it out. You do if you subscribe. All right, that's going to wrap it up for this week's show. I want to thank my guest, Max Rayman, once again for coming on. And to all of you, remember to keep the faith, stay optimistic, and let's go Mets. And I'll see you next time on another edition of Mets Musings.